All right, let's talk some NFL draft. Doug Kyed is with us, Pro Football Focus. He's on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. What is up, Doug? How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing fantastic. Thanks a lot. I just want to start with, this seems obvious, but I don't cover the NFL on the day-to-day. Former Alabama tackle Cam Robinson has reached a new deal with Jacksonville. Would that be indicative of the fact that they would no longer consider Evan Neal at the number 1 pick tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good indication of that. If they're willing to spend, $18 million a year to extend Cam Robinson, that they're probably looking elsewhere with that pick. And, all signs were kind of pointing that way anyway. There had been some recent buzz that maybe they could take Evan Neal or someone like Ikem Ekwonu, number 1 overall. But all signs do at this point seem to be pointing towards them taking Trayvon Walker with Aiden Hutchinson being that kind of backup option there.
I'm always interested. How much stuff do I believe that's reported this week or 10 days, 14 days out from the draft? Evan Neal, obviously very popular around here as an Alabama player. I'm reading yesterday, not on your site, but on Sports Illustrated, that maybe a knee and hip concern for Evan Neal. Sports Illustrated doesn't do this for a living. You guys do. Is this real? Not real? Is there any concern about Evan Neal's health, and will it impact him tomorrow night?
I don't think that there's a major concern there. I still think that he winds up being, a top 5 pick. That's basically everything that I've heard. But, it's certainly possible that that's true. Like I said, I haven't personally heard it. Could be a team leaking that, hoping that he falls to their pick, maybe later in the top 10 or into the top 15 or something like that. But it also seems like Evan Neal's camp has done a good job of being proactive and fighting against this, saying, that Evan Neal's played, he started 40 games or whatever it is, that he wasn't brought back in for a medical recheck at the NFL Scouting Combine, and that, it doesn't seem like there's a major concern there about injuries for Neal.
A first cornerback to go off the board, will it be Stingley Jr. or Sauce Gardner, and will both go in the top 10?
I think that Sauce Gardner winds up being the first cornerback taken. And yeah, I do think that both of those guys do go in the top 10. It's really interesting. They're kind of different stories, where Derek Stingley was fantastic as a freshman in 2019, and then injuries kind of caught up with him, and he wasn't quite as efficient and productive over the course of 2020 and 2021. Whereas, but he was still playing at that elite level at the SEC. Sauce Gardner, the competition wasn't quite as fierce, but he was much more consistent over the course of his college career. Didn't let up a single touchdown, had 9 interceptions, really some fantastic coverage numbers. So I could see Gardner going, 4 or 5. I could see the Jets or the Giants grabbing him. And then I do think that Stingley would probably be the next cornerback off the board. And I could certainly see Seattle taking him at number 9 overall.
Doug Kyed is with us. He is with PFF, Pro Football Focus, at Doug Kyed, Kyed on Twitter, and at PFF as well. He's on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. I know NFL scouts don't just look at one game, but for Sauce Gardner, when you're facing Alabama and the Crimson Tide has got the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and a first-round draft pick at receiver, and they decide just to run the football and not even really test him all that much, that speaks volumes about him, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's really telling. I think that is one of the reasons why NFL teams are so high on Sauce Gardner. The fact that, if Nick Saban is going to respect you, then yeah, you've probably got a pretty good future there in the NFL. And that is why I do think that he'll wind up being a top 5 pick. And maybe just, outside of that, I could see him falling a couple more spots there if there's really a run on those offensive tackles and edge defenders. But he's got elite size for a cornerback. He's got the speed. I've seen some comparisons. I even made them to someone like Richard Sherman, but I actually think that he's got higher upside as a man cornerback than even someone like Richard Sherman. So tons of upside there. Did come from the smaller school, but he was one of those players that really helped turn around that Cincinnati program and made them competitive in the NCAA this season.
Boy, when you say possible more upside than Richard Sherman, that catches my attention. It draws anybody back into the interview. I want to ask you about Matt Rule. We're fans, but obviously that's a situation that is struggling there in Carolina. Does he have pull in this draft to draft a franchise quarterback? It doesn't seem like the draft to do that. Does Matt Rule's job insecurity there in Carolina impact what they do in the draft?
I mean, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen there in Carolina. GM certainly has power. Owner certainly has power. And the owner there, you know, I think he tends to make some of the bigger decisions. So I'm kind of curious to see who is the one who's going to be pulling the strings in the draft. I don't know that for certain, but this is a massive draft for Matt Rule and his future there in Carolina. And I'm not sure how much patience they'll really have with Matt Rule in the 2022 season, because there is even some murmurs and rumors that, you know, Carolina could even possibly move on from him this offseason. So I don't think that's going to be an extremely long leash there. But I'm definitely curious to see what happens with Carolina there at number 6, because they don't have another pick until 137 overall. So I think that they're one of those teams that's really going to want to trade down from number 6 overall, even if the value, you know, kind of tilts in the other team's favor. But I could certainly see the Seattle Seahawks maybe moving up if they really like an edge rusher, a cornerback, an offensive tackle that's falling a little bit. I could certainly see a team like the New York Jets at number 10 overall moving back up for someone like Jermaine Johnson, the edge defender out of Florida State. And, you know, even the New Orleans Saints, it would be kind of tough to make that trade in division. But if they want to move up for a tackle like Charles Cross or someone else who's falling down the board a little bit, the Panthers just need more picks. And yeah, they can certainly take an impact player at number 6, but if they only need to move down 3 or 4 spots, they could still take an impact player and then use those additional picks to find that quarterback, either of the present with a guy like Baker Mayfield or Jimmy Garoppolo, or of the future with someone maybe like Desmond Ridder or Matt Corral or Sam Howell.
Most people believe USC's Drake London first receiver off the board. If he is the first receiver off the board, who's the second receiver off the board?
I would probably that's so tough. I actually might lean towards Jameson Williams being the first wide receiver off the board, even though he did have the torn ACL in the national championship game. He's just got so much potential as a 6'1", 6'2" wide receiver with blazing speed. He's kind of like he seems like a taller Tyreek Hill. And from scouts that I've talked to, they've really not only praised his play on the field, his big playability, his after catch ability, but also just who he is as a person. Someone was referring to him as a junkyard dog. He's the type of guy that you really want on your team. So I don't know. I could also see a scenario where Garrett Wilson is the first wide receiver taken. I think that not to, play it safe here, but it kind of depends on which team is finally going to be the one who takes that wide receiver, and ultimately what their preference is for that wide receiver. With a team like the Washington Commanders, I could see them taking Jameson Williams. I could see him being the pick. But if the Atlanta Falcons are picking, then I could certainly see Garrett Wilson. The Dallas Cowboys move up to take a wide receiver, could see Drake London. So I don't know. This is kind of a cop-out, but it really does depend on which team is making that pick and what their preference is, because those guys are all ranked really closely together.
All right, you. We always love seeing people's background. You've got an Emerson College banner. Are you an Emerson Emersonian? I believe is what they call the grads there. Are you an Emersonian?
Yes, I am. Class of 2008, and my dad actually graduated from Emerson as well, class of 1968.
Okay.
Boston or LA campus?
Oh, wow. I didn't know
Boston.
Oh, Boston. Okay. Well, because I was going to ask, I was looking at famous alums, and man, you guys did well. Jay Leno, Jennifer Coolidge, Bill Burr, Henry Winkler, Vin DeBona, Stephen Wright, Dennis Leary.
A lot of comments.
I think David Cross went there for a couple years too. Yeah.
Wow. I was going to ask the most impactful. Who's the most impactful Emersonian?
Wow, most impactful Emersonian. That's tough. I feel like Jay Leno gets mentioned a lot. My dad went to school with Henry Winkler, so I'll say the Fonz.
So do you watch Barry, the show on HBO?
I watched the first couple of seasons. I've been so busy recently that I haven't been catching up, but I do want to catch up because that show was fantastic.
I was going to ask you, because I'm looking, you don't play football there. My school, Montevallo, got the shirt on today, doesn't play football as well. We like to say football school, basketball school. If I say Emerson, what is it? A basketball, baseball, lacrosse school? What is it?
It's a basketball school. Sam Presti, the Thunder GM, went to Emerson, and there's some other kind of NBA execs who went to Emerson as well. So even though I did play a year of college baseball at Emerson, I will certainly say that it's a basketball school, but ultimately it's probably a theater and film school much more than any sport. But we did have the the Emerson College football undefeated since whatever it was, like 1870 or whatever it is, T-shirts there as a little bit of a bit. But yeah, I would have loved to have a football program at Emerson. I think I would have led the charge on that one, but just wasn't in the cards.
Okay,
we don't have the size of other schools.
I'll stop picking we'll stop picking your room apart. But the picture behind your right shoulder is Tiger Woods in that picture?
Oh no, that's Matthew Slater, the Patriots special teamer.
I've also not even close.
What a miss.
Sorry, I've got kind of a mess back here a little bit,
right.
but yeah, it was a gift from the Patriots, I think, for Christmas one year, where they gave us signed pictures that we're in with some players. So yeah, there I am with Matthew Slater.
Okay.
Yeah, first time Matthew Slater and Tiger Woods have ever been compared.
Probably the first time. I miss that old Seahawks helmet too. I don't know if you guys like this new Seahawks scheme better than the old.
I like the old. Yeah.
I grew up I was born in Edmonds, Washington, lived there until 1997. So I think that era of uniforms from 76 to whenever they changed them in 2002 or whatever are among the best in NFL history, but there's a lot of nostalgia attached there as well. But I also think that the uniforms they immediately changed to, the ones that had like 15 different shades of blue, were among the worst in NFL history.
I would agree with that. All right, listen, go follow Doug on Twitter at Doug Kyed. That is Kyed, Doug Kyed on Twitter, and at PFF for Pro Football Focus. Doug, man, we greatly appreciate the time. Know it's a busy week for you. Thanks for making some time for us.
Absolutely. Anytime, guys. This was fun.
All right. Take care. Doug with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.